Hello, and welcome to this Facebook Live, which isn't actually live today. I am recording it this morning, but I decided not to go live because I've had quite an emotional week and I wasn't sure, to be honest, I could get through the video without getting really upset. So I decided to pre-record it. So we'll see how we go. But welcome to this Facebook Live that's not live, which is all about speaking behind the mask during these COVID times. So I do have my mask with me, and we're going to do some exercises shortly, which you can practice with and without your mask on. So one of the really interesting things for me that's come from this whole year of craziness has been how much we rely on being able to see people's mouths and facial expressions to really understand what people are saying. And I think we actually sort of almost take it for granted that we are really watching lip movement and facial movement, not only to understand people's words, but also to get more of a sense of the tone with which, they're saying. Are they smiling as they say something, for example? And obviously now all we've got is eyes potentially, and there's a lot we can communicate through our eyes, but of course there's also a lot that we are missing. So the challenge, of course, now is not only that we don't see the lip movement and the facial movement, but we also literally have a barrier which can muffle the sound. And if your voice was already not particularly clear, then wearing the mask can just exacerbate the problem. So now more than ever, we want to find more clarity and effortlessness in our voice, because what I have heard from people is, particularly people that are wearing a mask all day for work, can find that their voice is getting really tired, that they're getting sore throats, and I suppose in the most extreme cases might be completely losing their voice. So whether you are someone that's wearing a mask for work or not, I hope that you're going to find these exercises really useful. And it's just going to maybe open your mind a little bit more to clear speech and how we actually create speech clearly. So we're going to focus on some powerful techniques that have the quickest impact in the voice. And bearing in mind, though, that we do all use our voice really individually. We all have a unique voice. We all come with our own limitations and habits. And, like for me this week, a very emotional week. So my voice has obviously been really affected. You don't sleep very well. So there's lots and lots of things that can affect our voice. So just to be aware of that too, but these are general guidelines. If you feel like this is a bigger issue for you, and actually you experience sort of a sore throat regularly, or losing your voice regularly, or just lack that kind of clarity in your voice and felt like you had to speak with a lot of effort, then I do advise working one-on-one with a voice teacher, because then they can really help you personally and give you specific exercises for your voice. But anyway, back to today, we're going to just now look at some exercises that are more broadly, I know, going to help people. So in case you're not aware, we produce speech by creating consonants and vowels. And consonants actually carry the meaning and the definition to what we're saying, and the vowels carry the emotion and the feeling. Now, in most cases, when someone's voice lacks clarity, so maybe they mumble, for example, it's usually the consonants that are not being clearly and intentionally articulated. And so working with consonants is a quick way of getting more clarity in the voice. Now, the interesting thing is, when I work with people, they really might think that they are articulating consonants, but actually, as you're going to find out when we go through some of these exercises, intentional articulation with consonants actually requires quite a bit of effort. And there's probably going to be some articulators, meaning the tongue, the lips, and the jaw, which are not used to working that hard. And so suddenly they're like, oh, I actually have to do something. And when they actually start to all work together, a bit like an orchestra, when they all come together, then there's that harmony, then there's that beautiful, we can create beautiful speech. But what tends to happen when we're not aware of how we are articulating is one or maybe two of the articulators are doing most of the work and the others are just having a little sleep in the back. So what we're going to do today is to become much more intentional using all the articulators, making sure they're all working together and doing what they're meant to do. So as I said, we're going to look at consonants, and what we're going to look at specifically is what we call plosive consonants. Now, this is a group of 6 consonant sounds that we use all the time in the English language. They hold a lot of power because they are created by building up pressure inside the mouth, and then there's like a mini explosion. So they have enormous potential for not only power in the voice with minimal effort, but also a crispness and clarity in our speech. And for many of us, if we're not conscious, we're not really thinking about how we actually create these consonants. So what are these magical consonants? Well, they are a P, a B, a T, a D, a G, and a K. And we're going to go through them, don't worry. We're going to go through them because actually we can put them into 3 mini subgroups. So a P and a B we can put together because they are produced at the front of the mouth with the lips, P, B. The D and the T we can put together because they are produced with the tip of the tongue against behind the top teeth at the gum ridge, up here, D, T. And then the G and the K, we can put them together because they are produced by the back of the tongue kissing the soft palate. And the only difference between a B and a P, a D and a T, and a G and a K, because we can put them in their groups, is one is what we call voiced, meaning the vocal folds vibrate, and one is what we call voiceless, meaning the vocal folds are not vibrating. So a B, B is voiced, there's vocal fold vibration. If you put your fingers on your throat, B, you'll feel a kind of buzzing. If you say P, you won't feel a buzzing. And if you do, there's probably something wrong. So you can just try that out right now. So you'll feel the difference. So what we're going to do first of all is just practice these consonants in isolation first of all, before we start to put them into actual words. So the B, B, and P, P. Now, what you want to be focusing on here is that the lips are moving, because you can say B without really doing a whole lot with your lips. You want the lips to be kind of soft and slightly protruding forward. B, P, B, P. But what's really important with all of this is we want to keep the articulators, the jaw, the tongue, and the lips are the main articulators that we're going to talk about today, moving, but keeping it very soft, because what we don't want is unnecessary tension and gripping and straining. So we don't want to go B and P, where we start to kind of put a lot of force and a lot of tension into it. So it's really about that sort of softness, B, P. Now what you can do then is see if you can actually increase the speed while maintaining the clarity. Keeping that speed, and just see if you can go really, really as fast as you can go, but without losing the clarity. Now the D and the T, this is really interesting because for a lot of us, our tongues are pretty lazy. They hold a lot of tension, so they tend to just chill out at the back of our mouth and not do a whole lot. So the D and the T, the clarity really comes from the tip of the tongue coming right forward onto the gum ridge behind the front teeth. When that doesn't happen, it becomes a bit muddy, it becomes a bit mumbly, duh, duh, duh. You want to think about protruding the lips slightly, but keeping them soft and keeping that tongue right forward, duh, tuh. And that's where you get the crispness and the clarity. So it's less physical effort. It might be more mental effort initially, but the physical effort will be much less. It's way more kind of bang for your buck when you do it this way, because the power is kind of automatic, remembering that these consonants specifically have that kind of quality of we're building up pressure, and then there's that like explosion of sound. So this is why they're so powerful. So again, do the same thing with this. Do it as fast as you can. And then finally, the G and the K, again, it's the back of the tongue moving against the soft palate. And we want to keep the jaw soft. Now, what often happens with G's, go, 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 people might move the jaw, go, 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 go. But what we want to do, because then if you move the jaw, the tongue isn't doing very much. So if you can, keep the jaw still but soft, and you can put your fingers on the jaw hinge, keep it slightly open, and make these consonant sounds, but make the tongue do most of the work. So go, 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 and hopefully you can see my tongue moving, versus go, 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 go. So the tongue then isn't doing a whole lot, and the crispness and the clarity, as I say, comes when everything is working together, versus the jaw just takes over. The jaw will want to take over because it's just a very overused, very strong muscle. The tongue, as I say, it tends to be underutilized in most of us. And that's what I find is one of the things I end up working with most speakers on, is releasing the tongue, but also getting it to start working and pulling its weight in speech. So you can practice the B and the P with the lips, the D and the T with the tip of the tongue against the gum ridge at the back of the front teeth, and then the G and the K with the back of the tongue kissing the soft palate, keeping the jaw soft, making the tongue do the work. Now, let's practice then on some actual words, because obviously you're not going to go around just saying random consonants at people. So I'm going to use my mask to demonstrate, because you know, the difference between when we clearly articulate and when we don't is the difference between someone really being able to kind of hear us and not. So I've got a few words here using some of these plosive consonants. And what we're going to do, I'm just going to demonstrate first of all a sort of unclear version, and then I'm going to demonstrate a clear version. So we're going to take the words book, dog, and grand. So starting with, I'm going to put this on a minute. So book. So if I don't really articulate book, 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 book. And so what we want to try and do is practice varying the loudness, because if someone's right next to us, then we don't need to shout at them. But all we want to think about doing, rather than sort of pushing the voice, we want to think about just articulating more. So on the word book, 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 all I'm doing really is putting more emphasis on that B and the K actually, but book, book. And then if we take the word dog, if I don't really articulate dog, 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 I'm sort of pulling the sound back. I'm not really doing a whole lot. Dog, 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 dog. So all I'm doing again is I'm being much more intentional with the articulation. And then finally the word grand. So again, if I don't really articulate, grand, grand, grand. And again, I'm just being much more, you can't actually see, but I'll do this now. You can't actually see, but I'm being much more intentional with all my articulators, grand. So the lips are moving, the jaw's moving, the tongue's moving. And that's what you want to start thinking about, everything working together versus the jaw just moves, you know, the lips just move. Everything needs to be working together for clear, effortless speech. So just to show you without my mask on, so book, dog, grand. There's no strain. I'm not pushing my voice. I'm not forcing my voice. The only thing I'm doing is I'm intentionally articulating those consonants. Now, then you can play around with, as I say, how loud and soft you go. and all you need to do is just articulate a little bit more intensely versus and pushing the voice. Now I've got a few more words here, because one of the other ways that our speech can kind of trail off and become unclear is we don't fully articulate the word to the end. So I've got a couple of words here, biologist. So if I don't fully articulate that word to the end, it becomes biologist, biologist. So the end just trails off, and then usually the person sort of has to work a little bit harder to understand what you've just said. And obviously if they can see your face, it's probably a bit easier. So make sure when you're doing this that you're articulating all the way through the word, because that really propels the sound forward. Remembering that this is not only about clarity, but also about power in the voice too, and effortlessness. And this is how we get the effortlessness. So biologist, beauty, tidy, sunny, dandelion. There's some random words I came up with. I'm not sure where my mind was going with these. So make sure that you're using particularly the tongue on all the consonants, because the tongue is pretty much used for most words that you will say. And then finally, the other area I noticed that people can get sort of stuck with this lack of clarity in the speech is words ending in ing, like singing, ing, and it becomes singing, singing. You know, the end of the ing tends to fall off. So again, when you're wearing a mask, being very intentional with the articulation all the way through to the end is so important. So driving, remember we did the G at the beginning, g, driving, growing, tidying. So make sure that you are fully articulating all the way to the end. Now, just as a preface as well, when we start working on our voice in this way and become much more mindful and intentional, it might seem a little bit over the top to start with. And I promise you, initially, it probably does have to be a little bit over the top to sort of change a habit. But eventually you can find somewhere that's a bit more natural and normal for you. But if you're not used to fully articulating, if you just try and slightly change the habit, you're just going to go back. So you do have to almost go to an extreme to find that middle ground. Now, a couple of other consonants which aren't plosives, but I also think can really hinder clarity in the voice is an N and an L. And N, again, is produced with the tip of the tongue going behind their front teeth. N, N. And again, what tends to happen is N. The tongue doesn't do a whole lot. It moves the bare minimum. So the tongue, tip of the tongue needs to come right forward. The only difference with an N and say a D is an N is a nasal consonant. So you'll feel some vibration in your nose, and that is completely normal. We'll do some words in a minute. The other one is an L, and L is what we call a lateral sound. So the sound comes up and around the sides of the tongue. And this is one I think that many, I notice myself, if I'm not very conscious, I can become quite lazy with an L. So intentional, lateral, nasality, I was just using words from this, international, practical. So make sure on that L, the tongue is still L coming forward. The tongue is still coming forward on the N, N, L. The more intentional you can be with the articulation, the more mindful you can be, the clearer your speech will be, the easier it will be to project, the easier it will be for people to listen to you. And most importantly, your voice is going to feel better. It's going to last. It's going to last the day. You're just not going to find that your voice tires. You're not going to be losing your voice. So intentional is the key. And when you start doing this, you probably won't realize how unintentional you were with your articulation. So really start to pay attention to how am I creating this sound. So I hope that's really helped. Because this isn't live, because I've done it as a pre-record today, please do ask me any questions below. Very, very happy to answer any questions about this video. and try things out and record yourself as well. I was actually practicing the other day with my mask on, and just to kind of hear the difference when I don't clearly articulate and when I do, and it's kind of night and day. So practice with your mask on. You don't have to video it, you could just audio record it, just to kind of get a sense of how different the speech actually is. So thank you so much. Please do ask me questions, and I will hopefully do an actual live very soon. Okay, thank you.